Hey everyone, I just got back late last night from Star Wars Celebration in London. I just wanted to give a quick vlog overview of the convention itself, as well as some toy hunting around the area, as well as at the convention itself. It was my first time out of the country since I started collecting, so it was really interesting to see where you would stumble on Black Series figures, and the ones that you would find in stores were not the ones you would find here. My hotel was a few miles from the convention center, but I think they knew what was going on because they had this awesome spread of Star Wars cookies. I was really surprised just how many people on all of the trains were all going to the convention. It was pretty clear based on the costumes who was headed there. Once we got there were some pretty huge lines, but it moved pretty smoothly, and I'd say I got inside within 15 to 20 minutes through the N1 door, which felt appropriate. The main stage is set up in the convention center, which is where you'll see all of the footage from the live streams, and they had some costumes, props, and vehicles from some of the UK-based productions, such as Rogue One. What's cool about the main stage here is that the actors and a lot of other Star Wars celebrities will come out kind of randomly, so people just camp out, sometimes all day, just to see who they're gonna see. You never really know. Last year I waited by the main stage and got to see Pedro Pascal and Rosario Dawson, so even if you aren't lucky enough to get into any of the panels, there is always that option in case you are really looking forward to seeing some of your favorite Star Wars actors. I got really lucky last year with some awesome panels. This year I only went to the Hasbro one, which was still really fun. Overall, I do feel like the whole experience felt a little bit smaller, and that may be because I didn't get to participate in any of those epic panels. It's always a highlight for me, of course, to see a lot of the new Black Series figures out on display. They put them out as soon as they reveal them, so this was the first day when they had some of their previous releases. Listen to this commentary here.
Oh, they've done him dirty there.
Who, Pedro?
Pedro.
Yeah.
That was just something that I caught on camera that I thought was really funny. The Jabeam Obi-Wan looks amazing, but it was really hard to get good shots of the figures because of all the reflections, so some other YouTubers and people on Instagram got much better photos. This is actually the mural that they used in the Ahsoka show. If you saw that leaked trailer from last year, you might recognize that. I do have to say that overall the scope of Celebration definitely felt much smaller than last year. It felt like it was about a quarter of the size with the same amount of people. There were certain times where it was almost impossible to move around through the crowds. For the giant panels, they would live stream them to other stages, so this was a bunch of people trying to just get a peek at the live stream, not even seeing the actual panel. It was just very high demand to get in there. One of the highlights is seeing all of the fan-made stuff, such as this Millennium Falcon set, and all of the costumes, of course, which I've sprinkled out throughout this video. Jazzwares, who does the Micro Galaxy Squadron, had a booth on display, and every day they would reveal a couple new things. It was amazing to see how many releases they've done just in the past year, because at Celebration last year they were simply teasing this line. It hadn't even come out yet. I always see photos from this store called In Demand Toys online, and I always wanted to visit. It's unfortunately about 2 hours from London, so I didn't make it, but they had this nice booth at the convention that had the newest wave with Mon Mothma and Din Djarin. The booth was so crowded, it was really hard to figure out even where the line was to check out. I ended up actually leaving with a bunch of new Indiana Jones figures that I will be reviewing on the channel this week. Here are some more of the amazing costumes that people put together for this convention. I can't imagine having to fly with a costume. That sounds terrible, so props to anyone that made the effort. There was, again, just a ton of fan-made stuff, which was really cool to see. This Max Rebo, this C-3PO. And just like last year, they had a huge display of all different fan-made droids. At its peak, you had to wait in line, but I came back late in the day around 5 or 6 p.m. before they closed at 7, and was able to kind of just walk around a lot more freely. The first day was really crowded, but it definitely chilled out afterwards. The Star Wars fandom always feels so big, but it's really cool to show up to one of these conventions and see so many people and cosplayers that you recognize from online. I definitely spent less time at the convention this year because I wanted to explore London itself. So I only really popped into the convention for about an hour or two each day. I also didn't hang by the Celebration stage at all, but I did catch a glimpse of Hayden Christensen leaving, so I got to see Anakin. That's pretty much all that I need. They also brought out different costumes and props from the films, and that switched out every day, so it was pretty cool to just get to see something new each time. After the convention, we popped over to Forbidden Planet, which is a famous comic book shop. It's very cool to see Hot Toys on display. You don't see that very much at a lot of shops. They also had just a lot of other collectible items like the Gentle Giant busts, as well as some statues and other kind of items that you don't really get to see that often. It's really interesting to see the stock at stores overseas because it's a bit different than what we have here. They probably had a lot of their stuff over at the convention, but the guys that were working the Star Wars section were just constantly unloading boxes pretty much as fast as people could grab stuff off the rack. I got the TVC Luke and the Artillery Trooper just to have something to open up. I don't really collect TVC, but I didn't find any Black Series that I needed. I also don't know too much about Marvel Legends, but I think that this Guardians of the Galaxy and the Spider-Man waves are quite new. A couple of the friends that I met at the convention took me to this weird underground market that had probably the craziest toy store I've ever seen. It was so tiny and claustrophobic, just floor to ceiling, literally stuff hanging all over the ceiling. And surprisingly, I actually found a couple newer Black Series, like this Rocket Trooper and the Guard. We also went into this shop called Game that is kind of like their GameStop, but this was actually inside of a clothing store, and they had a really unexpected selection of Black Series figures. Like I mentioned before, their store exclusives are all different, so you just never know what you're going to find at which store. One British pound is equivalent to about $1.25 in US, so 10 pounds would be about $12.50. So even with the conversion rate, this was still a great deal, and I ended up getting these 3 figures for 26 pounds total. I just got back to the US late last night, but I had a great time. I'm a little bit sleep deprived, but thank you so much to Frederick from Frederick's Figures for inviting me to come along on this trip. Thank you to everyone that took time to say hi. I'm sorry I couldn't meet more of you. Please leave a like, and I've got to get back to work making more YouTube videos and doing a lot of 3D sculpting for my Patreon. As always, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.